I just kind of have spent a lot of time out in the woods, out in the garden, and listening to older folks. So I'm gonna share a little bit about some of the seed saving stuff that I've done. A little bit of how it's been a faith practice for me, but also just some of the stuff about like how-tos and some various things. I will say I come from I'm like a Metho-Baptitarian, but I do come from a very, very, very long line of Baptists. My great grandfather was a feller named Roger Williams.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
not like the Roger Williams.
Well, the one that founded Rhode Island.
No
way.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and you know, I just thought it was the most Baptist thing ever when I read that he founded the first Baptist church in North America and promptly left it 4 weeks later. I thought, gosh, he's just like a mountain Baptist. But anyways, I do come from a long line of Baptists. But I've had an interesting sort of faith journey, to say the least. We kicked around through a lot of different denominations and churches in our area. And one thing, though, that was universal about all those churches, though you could also say, if you've ever heard of Loyal Jones, he was a great scholar of Appalachian things, and he said that really every denomination of people in the mountains, no matter what they say, are actually Baptists. Well, I think that Presbyterians were just Baptists that their deals worked out. But one thing that I heard in every single one of the churches, a very southern thing you hear people say, is, bless the hands that prepared this food. Now, when I was a kid and sitting there drinking Sprite out of my little styrofoam cup, you know, I was thinking of the old ladies that were back there in the kitchen that were, you know, fixing the food. Appreciate them. But if you stop and think, there's a lot of hands that have blessed the food that you eat anytime you sit down to eat. There's many, many, many hands involved in that. Not just the person who, you know, cooked it or fixed it or, you know, prepared it most recently, but the preparation for what you're eating, that goes back, you know, eons. That people have been saving seed, for example, for so long. But even if you come forward to that, you think of the people that, you know, bless the hands that planted the seed, that grew into a plant, that they nurtured the plant, that then you ate, that then was put on all the people. There's so many hands. I mean, if you really stop to count them all, it's shocking. I worked on a tomato farm over in Silva, big tomato farm. There were 15,000 tomato plants, and that is a lot of work. And I was involved in it from the very beginning to the very end. And in fact, a lot of the migrant laborers that normally helped work the farm got spooked, and they took off for Tennessee. So it was just me and the farmer trying to look after 15,000 tomato plants. And I learned a lot in that time. But there really is an incredible human effort that goes into everything that you eat. And so when you say that little prayer, you know, stop and take a moment to think how many hands have prepared that food. And then, but not just the people right now, but the preparation that has come before that. We're all of us, probably all of us, descended, you know, directly from long lines of agricultural people. If you go back to our first job description, you know, the book of Genesis, it tells us to, you can translate it, but basically tells us to till and to keep the soil. The Hebrew, I think, is avad and shamar, but essentially Adam and Eve are charged, you know, to till and to keep the soil. And what does that mean? That could mean a lot of things, more than just getting out, you know, your tiller, but interacting with the soil and not just and protecting it, because your soil is everything. I mean, your whole civilization can't exist without this much topsoil, which, like, our whole world food system basically revolves around this tiny bit of topsoil which is what feeds us. And that's pretty amazing when you stop and think about it. But like I said, think about bless the hands that prepared this food. The other thing I remember when I was going to church suppers and stuff like that as a kid, is we didn't grow these at home. My parents are Yankees, but I remember seeing these beans and just thinking they were really different from the beans we were growing at home. Come to find later on that those were leather britches. Anybody in here had leather britches? Yeah, I had a lot of good hands out here. Oh man, what a culinary delight. I remember that very distinctly. And so fast forward, many years later, actually put that into a song. But you may also know this, or you may not. There's a fiddle tune called Leather Britches. But leather britches was just a way that people would preserve their beans, right? That they could put them up and have them, without the newfangled modern canning technology. For a lot of Appalachian history, people were having to save save stuff to eat in different ways. So one thing to bear in mind is that, for one thing, the canning technology is like newer than we think. It's not been really used all that long on a grand scale. Initially, people were gardening much in the same way that the Cherokee did. Almost everything we grow in our garden, especially here in southern Appalachia, came from the Cherokee or indigenous groups in this area. Whether it's candy roasters, that's a Cherokee. Squash, if you've ever had candy roasters, there's about 40, 50, 60 different kinds of candy roasters. But the main thing is that is a winter squash, right? A key on the winter there, because they keep forever. I had one that I left sitting once in my apartment because it just never seemed to want to go bad. And at a certain point, I just became fascinated by the science experiment that this was. I think it went 2 years without rotting, and then it really rotted. But it was amazing to me that it could keep that long, because there was a time before we had refrigeration and all that stuff. We really needed this stuff to keep. In the summer times, in the mountains, there's a lot to eat out there. If you know what you're doing, there's just tons of plants, animals, things you can eat. In the winter time, of course, it gets very lean, extremely lean. And so a lot of the Cherokee gardening and then the earlier Appalachian gardening that was going on was stuff you could put up and store that then you could eat when things got really, mean. Apples, for example, that, if you were to eat them in the fall of the year, they don't taste very good. But you can put them up and they'll keep forever. Like winter johns are an example of that. But then by the time you come around to spring and you're getting down to the bottom, all your apples, and they've kept the longest, that they almost metamorphosize and the sugar changes, and then you can eat them. Of course, we don't necessarily need that now, because we have, this modern system that links everything together, where we can go get, apples from Washington State or something like that. But in the old days, everything had to be so local, had to be so invested, in your community. So one thing I do with all my programs is start off with a little fiddle tune, and seems like a nice place to start it off. But then at the end, I'll play some more songs. Usually I kind of do the talk and then I play afterwards. But I'm also, if you have questions, we can definitely have some questions at the end. But if you have a burning question and you just have to know, please just sling it out there. I'd be happy to answer it. But I'll play a little bit of this fiddle tune called Leather Bridges. I don't know that I really need to get up into this. So in the old country country across the pond where a lot of these old fiddle tunes and stuff we play here and old songs, before they came over the Atlantic on sailing ships, they had different names over there. This one was called Lord MacDonald's Reel. And I don't know why the name changed over here, but I have a theory. And my theory is that this old fiddler was sitting on his porch and he was playing this fiddle tune, and this young guy who was soaking up like everything, you know, he said, Uncle, what was that old tune you just played? And he said, and he forgot. And he's kind of looking around, and then he sees hanging on the edge of the porch leather breeches, which is just, you know, where it looks a little bit like these, all tan, all hanging on a string. Sometimes people put them in a jar, put them out on a screen, put them in a hot car. There used to be those, you know, old cars everywhere. They did a really good job drying things out. But I'm just seeing him looking over there, seeing that thing and going, leather breeches, and I'm stuck. There's a little bit of leather breeches for you. So one other thing that I like to talk about and impress on people is, for one thing, here in southern Appalachia, we have one of, I think it's the second most seeds that people keep in their family, called a seed shed. Like a watershed, but it's like where all the seeds come from. The second most of anywhere in North America, next to Central Mexico. Which, if you know anything about Central Mexico and like where it's, you know, like where beans and corn come from, it's pretty amazing to be number 2 to them. But so there's just an incredible diversity of different kind of seeds. You know, people might hear about greasy beans. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But there's so many different kind of seeds. I keep thinking one day I'll write one of those like songs, like that Johnny Cash song where he says, I've been everywhere, but just list, you know, all the different kind of varieties. And you have all these different ones. You got like turkey craw beans, and they're kind of usually brown with a little bit of white speckle on them, but they can be other colors too. The main thing is the story that your grandpa got them out of a turkey gizzard. That's the defining characteristic. But there's a lot of different things, and of course anyone, you know, here I'm sure that is familiar with family seeds being passed along. A lot of times they don't have a variety name in terms of, they're not like, this is a greasy bean, or like this is an October bean, or this is a good Shelly bean, or, you know, we use these Shucky beans, or, you know, bunch beans, or whatever. A lot of times it's like, well, that's, you know, Betty Sue Parker bean, for example. It's got somebody's name on it. And anytime I feel like you encounter a seed out in the wild, somebody has it. It's got, especially an old one's name on it, like, that's the stuff right there. But these seeds, well, there's a lot of different things I think to consider here. But one thing I'm always trying to impress on people is that seeds have a lot that they can teach us. And one of those is how to build resilient communities. I kind of expected that at some point in my life I'd really get to experience, the kind of situation where you're really glad that you have a resilient community. Happened a little sooner than I thought when Helene came through. It definitely taught me a lot about how important it is to have a resilient community where you not only know a lot of people that you've invested in community with, people that you've gone to church with, people that you've interacted with in different ways. Go play music, whatever kind of things you do socially, play bridge. I don't know. But any of those ways, you're always investing, right? You're investing in your community, and those can really just pay incredible dividends. But another way that you can have a resilient community, I think a really important part of having a resilient community is having a community that is varied, right? That it's not everyone thinking the same way, it's not everyone acting the same way, it's not everyone having the same experience. The more diversified your experiences is, your resources, all these things, the way you think, all those things can help us approach problems with we can approach problems more like a Swiss Army knife than a butter knife. Butter knife's great for butter, but it's not great for a lot of other things. But being a multi-purpose tool, and that's what community can do for us. But seeds can teach us a lot about that, because a lot of the old-timey seeds are what are called a landrace. And landrace is just a fancy botanical term. Basically means like a mud, in a way. And that's kind of a crass way to put it. But if you plant a lot of these old-timey seeds, you'll notice they'll sport out a lot. You'll be like, well, here's my candy roaster, for example. Every time I planted candy roasters, sometimes I'll get some green ones, and sometimes I'll get some blue ones, and they just come out like that. Or like if you look at people like Indian corn, for example, so-called, where it's got all these different colors in it. That's showing you all this genetic diversity. And why that is a lesson for us is because if you look at the oldest seeds that I know of that have been passed down, oftentimes I'm almost certain they're passed down from Cherokee. If you look at the seeds, they'll have all these different colors, so many different colors. Not generally like this one, where it's just like all white beans, but you'll have some red ones, some speckled ones, black ones, and the people who'll give them to you say, to make sure to, plant all of those. That make sure you want to keep the genes good, essentially. And that's the way they've always been done. Well, because you have all that genetic potential, because there's that diversity inside those clutch of beans, and the old timers would say, they'd say, give you a double handful. That's the amount of seeds to give to somebody. Not just because that's polite, or because you might need that money to really make a garden, but because it will give you enough of that genetic potential. And why that's good is because, wow, weather can be very different from year to year. We were in a drought for most of the year until we weren't last year. And this year's been completely different weather-wise. And those old-timey seeds that people were passing down, well, they had the built-in flexibility. So you might have some seeds in there that do good in a year that's got a drought. And then you have some others that do good in a year that is like a monsoon, and so on and so forth. Some might be better against different things that can roll through. So that can teach you a lesson there, that it's important to value people that are different from you and people that think differently from you. But it teaches you a lot about resilience. There's a famous theologian, and I don't know if it was Thomas Aquinas or one of those old timers back in the monasteries of Europe, but I remember that they said, and I think I boldly stand behind this, they said, if you contemplate nature, you will find God. And not only that, I think when you go out and observe nature, it can be frightening sometimes, but it can be, if you give into that sense of wonder, you'll never stop being amazed by the miracles that happen under your feet constantly. I get such a thrill going out into my garden in the spring of the year, and I'll take some old seeds. A lot of times I'm planting some 15, 20, 25-year-old seeds that someone gave me out of their freezer. Said, I haven't grown these in this many years, and maybe you can do something with them. I'm like, okay, I'm the only one growing them, and I'll set them out there, and I'll think, these seeds look, they're old, they look kind of rough. I don't think they're gonna make. And then here they come, popping up, punching through that clay soil that we have. And that is like a constant sense of wonder to me, as a constant sense of amazement to me, that you can do this tiny little thing, and then it can sprout into this incredible thing that, one little bean plant that then can make 200 seeds, that then those are planted, and then they'll grow out too, is an incredible lesson, I think, planted there for us, that we don't necessarily know what seeds we're sowing, but we're sowing seeds all the time, figuratively. And it's easy to sow seeds that are negative. It's easy to sow a lot of seeds that you don't want to sprout. And well, I think there's I wonder if I wrote that down. Yeah. You probably covered this recently in Psalm 126, that those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who continuously goes forth bearing seed for sowing shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. And, I've been sowing a lot of seeds in tears lately. In a lot of ways, I've said that so far 2024 feels like it's saying or 2025 seems like it's saying hold my beer, that 2024 was so awful, but so far in this year, and it seems true of many communities, it's just been rocked with people passing away, just a lot of grief, a lot of stress, saying it just seems like it's been hard as I can ever remember, hard in the world and hard in the holler too. We're really feeling a lot. My neighbor recently passed away, been a longtime farmer. He was just one of those people that kept his place really neat and was out there on the tractor all the time and moved his cows probably the same day every year. He was just like a clock. You could like set your clock to him. He was just a constant man like that, and just didn't wake up a few weeks ago from a nap. And it's hard to see those kind of to see things change that haven't changed, and and then another one of my neighbors passed away very, very close to then, and it's just been seemingly like one thing after another. But one thing that I've found with seed saving, and too with music and stories, is when you pass on, you don't know what seeds you've left with people, seeds of yourself, seeds of memory that you've sown in other people. Because long after you're gone, at least here on earth, there's still so much, there'll continue to be so many seeds of you in other people if you took the time to sow them out in your community. I think about my neighbor Betty Sue Parker, whose daughter just passed away, one of her daughters. And Betty Sue passed on years ago. She was an old mountain woman, and she was tough, I tell you what. But I loved her. She was really a great woman, knew a lot of old cures and things like that with plants. And I remember her sitting on her porch and stringing beans. And every time that I go out into my garden, walk through the rows, for me, my garden is like a church. Gives me a lot of the same feelings when I go to church and see familiar faces. Because the same seeds, when I walk through my garden, I see all these people's faces that I've known, people that shared the seeds with me. And it's a fundamentally different relationship. I think it gets back a little bit to that tilling and keeping, that I can look around and remember the stories, and remember the faces, and not only that, then get to eat those beans that Betty Sue prepared, that her mother had given the seeds to her, and her mother had given the seeds to her mother, and then I got Betty Sue's seeds from one of her daughters, Candy. That you're reaching back across, again, all those hands that have blessed and prepared the food. You're reaching back across all that time. That's really been something that has given me a lot of hope. But so Betty Sue's beans, which I didn't normally, when I we were to do like a seed share or seed swap, I would bring up like 2 tables full of seeds. At this point, I'm giving away so many that I realize I need to kind of re-up my stock a little bit. I'm giving so many seeds away, but I hope they bless people. But I just brought Betty Sue's beans, brought 2 little sets of seeds that kind of demonstrated some little miracles to me. And one was that these were the seeds that I had in my garden when it got washed away. But there were some seeds that didn't get washed away. Fortunately, I'd already saved a bunch. I'd put some up. But I remember walking out in the garden and well, it was that seems like a charitable word for what it was at that point. But looking up, our hillside was all trees were down everywhere. I at one point tried to count all the trees that were on our property, and I realized it was smarter to count the ones that were still standing. and so I remember kind of looking up at all that from down in my garden, down the bottom, looking up the hill and seeing just everything all tore up. And then I saw, this is maybe a week after the storm, I saw all these little bean seeds were poking up through all that silt. And I remember looking over at my little daughter. She's 2 years old. She looks like she's got this little yellow curly hair, and she's just cute little blue-eyed baby. She's a lot cuter than my wife or I were as babies, so I don't know what happened. But I remember looking down at her, and she got this little shovel that she found, and she was digging in the silt, and I remember saying, "Dig, dig, dig, Daddy, it's time to dig." And I thought, gosh, you're right, Margo, it is time to dig. Time to till and to keep that soil. And so, of course, it's about to be winter, so those little bean plants didn't make it very far. But it was a reminder that there's still seeds planted out there. There's seeds of hope, seeds of love, and that things will grow green again. And sure didn't they? One of the kind of confusing things about walking in this far removed from Helene is just how much the green has come back, and it, in some ways obscured so many things that seemed unobscurable. I think there's a real lesson there. Let's see where we're. But yeah, again, we're we're garden people. If we go back to our first job description, and here, living in Western North Carolina, we have incredible seeds that are not just seeds of heritage, that are not just special because they're tasty, but they're special because they're resilient. They come from a long line of people that survived on very little, people that were having to dig deep into hope because things were really hard, but they kept digging. They kept tilling, they kept avad and shamaring the soil, and thanks to that effort, we're still here for one thing. But those seeds that they planted, those beautiful multicolored seeds, they're a lot more nutritious. They're much more nutritious than a lot of the modern varieties that have come along, because they've been designed for a very specific thing. They're butter knives, or they're like fancy Japanese sushi knives or something. They're really good at the thing that they're supposed to do. But I think it's important that we look back at the heritage of those seeds that we have that are flexible and diverse and really tasty. So I'm going to get on to the point of the fun part, not the sad part, the fun part here, and I'm going to sing you a few songs, and then I'll be happy if you have any questions. Apologize if I've been a little out of it today. My daughter has decided to just sleep isn't for her lately. And she seems to find a different excuse every night for why she woke up in the middle of the night and needed to keep me up all night. But she's a blessing, and I'm happy that we planted that little seed in the world, and hope she thrives and keeps digging. So here's some songs for you. So I'll sing you a happy one first. And you can sing along. This is participatory. All right, so when I get to the chorus in this song, I'm going to say greasy beans, and then you say greasy beans. And that's as hard as this song gets for you. It's really easy. It's all right. And if you just say a stray greasy beans out in the middle of nothing, it's good too. When I was young, I knew very little. And at church supper, I sat down for victuals, and I tasted a legging was so serene. Love at first sight with the greasy beans. Now these beans were so fat, like they could explode, and down my gizzard more and more flowed. So tender and flavored, the last falls off fat. Past the beans, I'll have more of that. Greasy beans, greasy beans, oh how I love greasy beans. Amongst all the beans that I've ever seen, none can compare to the greasy bean. Phaseolus vulgaris, the fine species, it's got many splendid varieties, like October beans and goose beans and the turkey crawl. But the greasy bean beats all I ever saw. Greasy beans, greasy beans, oh how I love greasy beans. Amongst all the beans I've ever seen, none can compare to the greasy bean. Got a frog stuck in my throat. Greasy bean, maybe. Now for the Yankees and uninitiated, I'll tell you something that long I have hated. That's when fools far too young. They should be fat and full and then unstrung. Greasy beans, greasy beans, greasy beans, greasy beans. Oh, how I love greasy beans. Amongst all the beans that I've ever seen, none can compare to the greasy beans. Now when they lay down to rest, I'll greasy bean seeds all on my chest. Wait, no, that'd be a horrible waste. Plant them yourself and have you a taste. Greasy beans, greasy beans, greasy beans, greasy beans. Oh, how I love greasy beans. Amongst all the beans that I've ever seen, none can compare to the greasy beans. Greasy beans, greasy beans, greasy beans, greasy beans. Oh, how I love greasy beans. Amongst all the beans that I've ever seen, none can compare to the greasy beans. Oh, that was just, you did such a good job. That was great. Sure, you've done well trained there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a little song I wrote one day on the way to a seed library opening up in Boone, and I was living in Winston-Salem at the time and pining away like a little potted plant in the windowsill. I wanted to be back in the mountains so bad. But went up there, my friend Dave, he said, come and sing some songs about gardens, and I said, oh, sure, yeah. And then got in the car and started driving up there. I said, I don't know any songs about gardens. I was trying to think of like inch by inch, row by row. It was like, my mom sung that to me when I was real little, but I remember that went. And then, so I just wrote this in the car on the way up there. Wrote Greasy Beans, and it's been a smash hit ever since.
Yeah, I bet.
I haven't actually put it on a record, which I need to do. But I did put this one on a record. But I do need to do a record of all seed songs. Just one of many things to do. I'm a collector of to-do lists. Got a really, really lovely collection. It just keeps growing.
A guitar tuner.
Yeah, cheater. So yeah. So this is a song. It's kind of like I took a lot of old stories people had told me firsthand about. A lot of times when someone would give me some seeds or family seeds or share them with me, they'd tell me a little story, but usually just a little story. Like it wasn't often like, here's the sweeping epic and here's the seeds that go along with it. It would, it would be like, oh, I remember, picking those tomatos, little yellow, little tiny tomatoes. I remember picking those out of the snow because they were the last things still growing that time of year. Or another one is there were some beans in here and also some corn that were given me to two families that had been moved out of communities in the mountains that had been flooded for TVA. And there's a long history of people when they migrate somewhere taking the seeds of home with them. And again, getting back to the resilient seeds, not only are they stuff that will be flexible with the weather, they tend to be have a better chance of starting to do well wherever you take them. So those, those resilient seeds that really matters, not just for being where you are, but maybe for being where you need to go to next. But this is a little song that I wrote, a little bit about how it is like every time I walk out in the garden, it's just a lot of people's faces looking back at me. And I'm like, yes, Betty Sue, I know you need to be weeded right now, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Take care of your beans. But usually it's more of good feelings and guilty feelings. When I grow a garden, there's more than me. There's memories, families, hopes, and dreams. Over there in the corner, it's Ma's tummy toe. I fondly remember picking out of the snow. It's been growing here many long years, through droughts and floods and hopes and fears. And in the springtime, I'm reunited with friends gone on, where they burst from the ground with tendrils and tails. In the summer days, bringing in maters and beans, I'm setting the table with their hopes and dreams. Well, this white corn here is a special one. We grew it in Hamburg before the TVA come. They drowned the town with water so clear, and all that was left was one little ear. And them speckled beans at a hazel creek that the TVA filled up, water so deep. The ladies brought out that little bean as they carried their hopes and their memories and dreams. And in the springtime, I'm reunited with friends gone on, where they spring from the ground, tendrils and tails. And in the summer days, when I'm bringing in maters and beans, I'm setting the table with their hopes and dreams. Well, that mean there she's running roughshod all over my garden with the sunset pots, kept in a freezer 30 years or more. Just a double handful and I set 'em out here. That big tomato, so yeller and fine, it happens to be no favorite of mine. Frozen for 40 years or more, sleeping through funerals and birthdays and more. In the springtime, I'm reunited with friends gone on, where they burst from the ground with tendrils and tails. And in the summer days, when I'm bringing maters and beans, I'm setting the table with their hopes and dreams. When I grow a garden, there's more than beans. There's memories, families, hopes, and dreams. Here's one that I don't sing out as much, but I like it. I remember how my bare feet slid along the grass down to the sun-soaked dirt of the garden. Well, I'd work the coarse clay up between my toes and watch the worms wriggle out of their world. And their lives filled me up with God-given joy, just to see and feel the wonders, the beautiful thunders, the flashes of life, all painted with love. I take my broken heart to the tops of mountains, let the rolling of the greens and blues amplify my soul. It lifts me up like I could run down to them, like leaves piled high and fall. And their lives fill me up with a God-given joy, just to see and feel the wonders, the beautiful thunders, the flashes of light, all painted with love. And in the spring I need the dirt to sow tiny sleepers, to awake and rejoice in the light of the sun. In the fall I take them to the dark and quiet, where we can long dream of summer again. Their lives fill me up with a God-given joy, just to see and feel the wonders, the beautiful thunders, the flashes of light, all painted with love. Well, I'll sing you one last song here. It's not one that I wrote. It's a rather old song. It's a camp meeting song, which does come from a really interesting period in American religious history, where you had people coming from all over the place. I mean, just by the thousands to meet up in these giant camp meetings, giant tents, and have these huge, multi-day, multi-month programs sometimes. And given that this was like the 1700s, and people all lived pretty insulated from each other. I try not to use the word isolation too much. It's a little overused. But they were separated from each other, and so all their songs were different. Sometimes they didn't even necessarily speak the same language, but they wanted to sing songs together, and they get together and they say like, well, that's not how that song goes, and they go, yeah, it is, and so they came up with some new songs that are really easy to remember. You only need to learn one word that changes with the different verses: mother, father, sister, brother, and so forth and so on. If you've seen "O Brother, Where Art Thou," they've got down in the valley to pray, which they changed for cinematic reasons to down to the river to pray. Valley still would have worked in that scene, but whatever. And that's an example of one of those. Well, this is one that I learned from my friend Bobby McMillan. He passed away a few years ago. He was a great collector of old Appalachian ballads, and he knew a bunch of old meeting house songs like this one. I believe that his father or his I know his grandfather was a preacher. Sure, there were a lot of preachers in his family, but I believe it was his grandfather that he learned this song from. And when I learned this, I had no idea it would go on to be it was a powerful song. I mean, it has a great message, I think, to impart for people that are, needing to dig deep. Whether these were people, riding on a boat across a transatlantic voyage, scared to death, or, whether it's people going through different trials and tribulations that life has to offer, the messages that we'll get there eventually. Like little Margot, just keep digging. But this is a song that people used to sing in some old primitive Baptist churches. After the storm, I remembered this song, and it was really quite a powerful song for the moment. Nobody knows who the heck I am on Facebook. I don't have like a lot of followers or anything. I put music on there, and like a small handful of people are like, "Good job, William." I put this. I went up in the woods and recorded myself singing this old song because I knew it had something. It could help people, and I still think it can help people. But it shocked me. I think the last, I haven't looked since, but something like 12,000 people had watched it, which for me is like way out of, and that's not me bragging on me. That's me saying what a powerful song this is. And so I hope that it offers you something. And then if you have any questions afterwards, maybe you've heard it, but it's a powerful song. Fathers, now our meeting is over, and we must part. And if I never see you anymore, I'll love you in my heart. And we will land on the shore. We will land on the shore. And we will land on the shore and be safe forevermore. Mothers, now our meeting is over, and we must part. And if I never see you anymore, I love you in my heart. We will land on the shore. We will land on the shore. We will land on the shore and be safe forevermore. Friends, now our meeting is over, and we must part. And if I never see you anymore, I love you in my heart. We will land on the shore. Lord, we'll land on the shore. Yes, we'll land on the shore and be safe forevermore. Thank you, folks. Happy to answer any questions. I didn't bring my seed spread here, but I did bring some very special seeds. These were all ones that I grew in my garden last year. These are the Betty Sue Parker beans. They're incredible greasy beans. First year I ever planted them, I set them at the bottom of a pretty good sized fence, and then just for fun, I thought I'd take the tallest bamboo I could find, cut it off at the bottom, and I pipe clamped it to that, and I was like, I wonder how high it'll go. And it grew to the top of that, and it got so heavy, it broke that off, and then it fell, and it found another bamboo pole, and it crawled all the way up. It must have grown 40 feet in length. So vigorous to be sure. But they're really tasty, special beans. And then I also brought field peas, which aren't something that is as grown as widely up here in the mountains. People talk about the field pea green bean line, that there's sort of an area where people don't grow field peas up above a certain elevation. But you can grow them now because the world's a little hotter than it was. But
But these are special to me because I never planted them. They just, oops. They're also vigorous. They're not real big, you know, like, but they keep coming back every year, just volunteer, which, you know, field peas are a very warm weather kind of a thing that they would survive over winter is very unusual. I've never had them do that up, you know, in the mountains. But they're survivors. And there's also some in there that must have had a little midnight rendezvous with some old Holstein peas that I had.
Yeah.
But they're special. And sometimes I encourage people, if you're having real bad bean beetle problems, if they're driving you crazy, you could, you know, skip a year and just grow field peas, and they won't eat those. Completely different. You can kind of eat them like green beans, and when all those bugs come out and look around for their, you know, yearly green beans to eat, there's nothing there. So there's some little, there's a time. You gotta know when to sow. That's very good biblical advice. Sometimes it's good to not grow the same thing every single year, even if you really want tomatoes or you really want greasy beans. Any questions?
Are you originally from this area? Were you raised here?
That's a good question.
Well, I know the answer to it, but so I am from here. I'm from Bakersville, North Carolina. However, I don't go back 7 generations in a killing. So I was born in the Spruce Pine Hospital and grew up in West North Carolina, but I'm not rooted, I guess you could say. But I'm not from anywhere else. I'm just not from, you know.
Well, I grew up on Brush Creek.
Okay.
And I'm sure you know where that is. And my dad always had a garden, and they shared seeds.
Yeah.
And saved seeds, which was at time in my life, well, okay.
Yeah, everyone thought this about it. They're like, well, yes, everybody does that, right? Well, it turned out. You know, it's interesting. I say all the time, I say, it is true for a lot of things, culture, tradition, of different kinds. It's not like the books don't save stories, like communities save stories. Freezers don't save seeds, though that's a good place to keep your seeds. Communities saving seeds. Communities sharing seeds, being generous with each other. Because I learned real good that a freezer only is as good as your power. And I'll tell you right now, keep your seeds in glass jars. Glass jars, not plastic. Plastic is a wondrous invention that's causing a lot of problems in the world nowadays. And it's good for certain things, but it easily gets little holes, and you can always do little tests. You know,
Yeah.
You can make sure there's a little air in there, and if you do this, and it's got a hole in it, you do not want to put that in your freezer.
Yeah.
But really, if you put them in nice, tight jars, you know, it's a good thing you can do with what you would recycle, but instead, your pickle jars, if you're like me and you eat pickles like it's your job, you got all kinds of these. And if your freezer fills up with water, it doesn't ruin your seeds. I'm very fortunate that I did this, that I put all my stuff in glass. It's a lot more convenient, and you can pack them in easier, like when it's a Ziploc bag, but they get holes in them, they wear down. If it gets wet, a little hole, water can get in there, and water is like your true enemy with saving seeds. If you can keep things good and dry and not too hot, they'll keep a long time whether you freeze them or not. You want to freeze them at least a little bit because you'll get bean weevils, for example, and things, but just keeping them in the freezer for, you know, like a week will kill all that stuff, and then you can just set it in a dark place, in a cooler, just get a cooler, you know, put it in a not hot part of your house, and that'll keep seeds as good as anything. But yeah, keep your seeds in glass. I try to tell people that all the time. It makes a big difference. But yeah, saving sharing seeds. I've also talked to so many people that was just such a common part of everyday life that, you know, they didn't think a thing of it when it was gone. And I have talked to so many people that have said, yeah, Grandma died and we cleaned out her freezer and threw everything in the trash and just had no idea. And I'm like, no. But every once in a while, someone will say, well, you know, Grandma passed away, like one of the beans I mentioned here, and you know, we lost her seeds. But then, you know, another relative passed on, and we went in his freezer and found her beans, you know. Like, sometimes they make it. So, or there's even incredible, we call them Rip Van Winkle seed stories, you know, where someone will be like, well, I found these, a jar of beans, like, under an old house, and some of them will sprout. I mean, it's incredible. Or in a cave, you know, find a pot of some seeds or something. It's, if the conditions are right, they can keep forever. I've seen tomato seeds planted that were 50 years old, and I thought, you know, like, well, this is sweet that we're trying, and then every one of them come up. So, you know, don't give up. Don't give up. You never know. I had a bunch of old candy roaster seeds that hadn't really made, and I thought I'd give them one last chance. So I took every bit of them. I thought maybe out of like these 30 seeds, one will sprout, and they all sprouted. And so most of my garden this year is candy roasters, but that's not the worst thing in the world.
Have you had a specific seed that was harder to grow than others?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, there'll be like certain varieties of something that might not grow as robustly. You know, like these are really very reliable as a bean. They're just they bear a lot and make a bunch of beans, and they're pretty. Some of them are so shiny you can see your reflection in the pod. They're incredible. But corn is hard. A lot of squash can be hard because they're bad to cross out. Tomatoes and beans, field peas can actually cross a little bit, but a lot of the stuff in the garden isn't too bad to cross. But corn, it'll cross over a mile, you know, just depending on how the wind goes. So it can be tough to not have your neighbor's corn also become your corn. So sometimes if you can, it's good to be like, hey, I'll give you a bunch of corn, just could you plant mine so that I, you know, that can be tough, finding a spot that's away enough. Or there's these little squash bees that are the most beautiful little black bees, and they will fly like miles to go find other squash, so it can be pretty tough sometimes to keep them from crossing. Well, people sometimes, I don't do this, is they'll like bag them, you know, so that to make sure that it only pollinates that. But that seems kind of unnatural to me. I don't know.
Excuse me, do you,
I'm sorry.
Somebody go ahead.
do you ever save any native wild seeds? Because, you know, with all the, like creasy greens, we find it harder and harder to find those every year because they're native to this area, but they're wild.
Yeah, one thing that helps them is to take out a backhoe and just tear up the ground everywhere.
Yeah.
They really do. They like very disturbed soil. So if it's like,
But I mean, with everything that's building up, we have fewer and fewer places for them to grow.
true, yeah,
Do you
right.
suggest we save
Yeah.
some of those?
Yes.
I have a lot. I don't, because I have so many greasy greens. It's just like they're everywhere. Now I think part of it is we have so many invasive species that are taken up and competing with them. That's probably one of the biggest things. But they do seem to really like disturbed soil, places that, you know, have gotten recently kind of torn up, but are like real clay heavy and kind of, they like that. But yeah, I do. We have a lot of spice bush. I've been throwing a lot of spice bush seeds out because it's got good roots for holding the bank together, and I need that in my house.
I'm originally a city girl, so I've never grown beans in my life. So I got some bean seeds from the library this spring. I was so excited I was gonna grow everything. Well, not a single bean came up. My tomatoes came up. I'm ever so proud because my first tomatoes in my life. And herbs. the rabbits ate the strawberries, but I like to eat vegetarian, so I really like beans, but they don't want to grow with me. So what is why? What do I need to do to make, or maybe get those really strong beans for you? I don't know.
Yeah, so I'll say there's a couple of things that could go wrong. One is that like the seed libraries, if they're just in like little paper seed packets in there, they can be exposed to a lot of variability in temperature and things that can just make them not keep very good. A lot of times seed libraries are stocked with like old seed from seed catalogs that are like, yeah, sure, take this, we can't sell it. And that stuff can keep, right, maybe, but libraries are like, oh look, something we can do with a card catalog, and they're so excited. It's like, what else are you gonna do with a card catalog? It's like such a dinosaur, but they fit seed packets, but they're not great for seed storage in a way. Be better if they had a cupboard in the back with a bunch of seeds like this. So it could just be that the seeds were got exposed to something, or possibly maybe you didn't. I mean, if you planted tomatoes at this, when did you plant the beans?
This spring, at the same time as the tomatoes. I didn't even know it was the right times or not. I just stuck them in the yard.
Yeah. Well, you could have planted them in the wrong signs. You gotta plant them when the signs are in the arms.
When do they need to be put in?
You can actually plant beans pretty late. I think that they had just had some germination problems. It could have been that the soil was kind of cold. And sometimes the soil is too cold, like they just don't germinate good, and like stuff come in and eat them. I think the seeds were faulty though, or they were. Yeah. You should. I bring these to share, so I'll be happy to share some. Just save the seeds. Save the seeds. It's important to get in that like relationship where you're not just like, you're not like, I buy seeds, I eat them, I buy seeds again, I eat them. Like this way, you're like, I plant these seeds, and we're having a relationship. We're getting back to that like sacred, ancient relationship where, I'm like, here's the deal. It's kind of dark, seeds, but this is the deal I'll make you. I'm going to eat most of your children. But I won't eat all of them. Yes. I'm going to eat most of your children, but other ones I'm not, and we're going to plant, and we're going to thrive, and we're going to live together, and it's going to be great. And so sadly, with most gardening being from seed catalogs or those sorry seed things that they have at Walmart where they let them they don't take their seeds. Carrot seeds. It's good to enter in that old relationship that goes back to the gardening. We've been garden people from the beginning. I think it fundamentally changes the way you think about your garden if you're saving seeds. My thoughts. Any other questions? Wrapping it up. Great.
Can I ask you one about organic seeds? Now, if you go to the grocery store right now, you go buy Cherokee Purple or something like that, it's not necessarily, if you save the seeds, will it grow?
Well, it depends. If they're true Cherokee Purples, you should be able to save the seed, though it would depend on the farm. Was it at the end of a row next to a bunch of random yellow tomatoes? So it might cross. It also might not really be Cherokee Purple. There's ones that are sold as Cherokee Purples, but they're a hybrid that's been bred for being grown in a greenhouse and all this stuff. So I tend to suggest that the people try to start with like ideally if you get your seeds from a person, that's the best way. Go to a seed swap or that kind of thing. I think that anything we pass on as a culture or as seeds or anything like that, learning from warm hands is like so different. and we use that a lot in tradition keeping, a ballad singer and all that kind of stuff. And there's just you know, you can go on YouTube and you can learn all kinds of stuff. I'm able to save a lot of money not going to a mechanic because I can go on YouTube and figure out how to do stuff. But you know, you can find all these wonderful old songs on YouTube. You can find all these like advice about doing all these things. But that's so different from when you actually learn from someone that's like in your family or in your community, and you have that relationship that it's just fundamentally different. So I think, you know, hand-to-hand seeds is the best thing if we can.
Does Mars Hill University still have that sharing seed program?
I don't know about that, but they still have like the Appalachian Garden there. I forget the name of the instructor that oversees that. There it is. But yeah, they still have that, and I don't know if they should host a seed swap. Everyone should host a seed swap. It's not that hard. I started calling them swap and shares because people say, oh, I don't have any seeds to swap. I'm like, oh, what? No, like, the whole point is to have these things and give away your excess seeds to bless other people and hopefully keep those seeds from disappearing, because you do not want to rely on one person at all just to save these things. You don't want to rely on a seed company, because you'll one day go, sometimes open up a seed catalog, go get that seed you get every year, and it's gone.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily keep it. But we should just have a seed swap here in the spring or in the winter, and have me down, and we'll have all kinds of seeds.
Yeah.
Done.
Awesome. Well, folks, thanks for having me.
And thanks for coming.
Yeah, and have a blessed evening.